I don't think that building the marketing habit takes years, but I do think, honestly, it probably takes about a quarter or 3 months to finally settle into things, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to not, tick your marketing tasks off of the calendar every week or every day. And that's fine, but it's in this greater effort to be doing something on a regular basis.
We document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What's going on, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX, and on this channel we are passionate about documenting and sharing best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues. If you're a first-time guest, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited for you to check out the show, and if you are returning, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and sharing this with somebody who you think might enjoy it. All right, let's jump into today's episode. I am stoked to have Tayler from Enji here with me today, and you might know her from some of her other brands, but you're really making a pivot, right, towards this new product. Is that correct? Or it's a product? No, it's a service.
It's a tech product. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, I kind of have to own it. I'm a serial entrepreneur at this point. So I have a stack of hats sitting on my head, and it's like, well, which hat am I putting on today? But yeah, so I am transitioning from Tayler from TAYLRD Media and Designs to Tayler from Enji. And it's an exciting point in time for me, because it's not very often you get to like reintroduce yourself to folks.
Totally. I love that. I'm so excited to be part of that. And I'd love to dig into maybe just a little bit of like what you did, maybe what people are more familiar with you on, and then the direction that you're going. And then we're going to have a conversation, kind of like we said before we jumped on, just about marketing and actually making marketing something that we do more consistently. So I'm so excited for this episode. Could we, though, just before we get started into the meat and potatoes of everything, could we go back and just give me a little bit of an understanding of, like, personally, where do you come from? Why the wedding and events industry? Why design? And kind of give us a little bit of a backdrop before we jump into this topic.
Yeah. So like a lot of folks, I tried, I put in an honest effort in the corporate world and it didn't work out. And long story short, I ended up getting connected to the founders of Aisle Planner, which is a company that most people in the wedding industry are familiar with. And I was hire number 2. So I was their marketing director from 2015 through almost the end of 2018, and really a part of establishing that brand and product as something that the wedding industry needed to know about. So that's how I got really tapped into this fantastic industry, because my background is in education. And I was like, I love it here. What's not to love about working with people who are driven and running their own businesses and chasing dreams and know how to throw a really great party while they're at it? So after my time there, I basically just decided that, it was time for me to kind of take that leap that so many others have taken. And I went back to focusing on my consulting business, which is TAYLRD Media and Designs. And so under TAYLRD, I've been focusing on helping wedding pros set marketing strategies, but also writing copy, because I'm not going to lie, within the past 3 years, everyone started to understand how important copy is. And so I have written more than I ever thought possible in the last 3 years, but I'm thankful that I've been able to, help people tell their stories. And so what I'm doing now is I'm launching a tech startup called Enji. Depending on when this episode goes live, we may be pre or post launch, but the date that I'm putting out there that I need a little bit of help being held accountable to is May 1st. Amazing. And what we're doing at Enji is we're really taking everything that I've learned from working with wedding pros for nearly a decade and turning that into a digital software product that allows people to create their own marketing strategy in minutes, create marketing campaigns, manage their marketing tasks, track KPIs, and organize everything about their brand. So it's for the people who have personally worked with me or know me pretty intimately, they're like, it's you as software. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of me as software. So we're really trying to capture all of the things that I know that small business owners need help with in a digital tool that's super easy to use and fits into that kind of crazy lifestyle that we all live.
Totally. I love that. Those elements that you mentioned are so powerful because I think a lot of business coaches in this space, consultants, whoever will say, hey, you should be tracking these certain metrics or data. But a lot of times the current CRM platforms out there don't make it easy for people to track those things. So you might be saying, oh, well, you should be tracking your conversion rates. You know, how much business you're converting from your leads, or you might want to track the time that it takes to convert a lead to a booking, right? A sale. But then you won't have that information on the back end of some of the CRM systems. So it sounds like what you're doing is you're kind of bringing together some of the brand design side, the strategy, and then actually the execution. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yep. Execution, implementation, and then kind of that depending, I don't know, marketing professionals will call it a postmortem, which is, very dark, but that's what it is, right? Coming back and looking at the numbers behind your business and your marketing efforts to see what's actually working and what you might be still doing because you're just emotionally hung up on it, but it's not actually bringing in any clients. So yeah, I mean, the KPI tools, which if anyone's like, what is a KPI? A KPI is a key performance indicator, and it's really just, a data point. But the KPI tool is something that I'm really excited about because it's not just asking people to plug numbers into an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to be this really cool chart of charts that you can overlay multiple KPIs on, so you can see right next to one another, like, this is how many leads I've gotten this month and over time versus this is how many I've booked, month over month and over time. So we're really trying to create something that gives people the knowledge that they might get from a consultant. But, most small businesses can't afford a full-on consultant to be like a fractional CMO for their business. So we're really trying to make sure that everyone has access to the marketing tools and knowledge that they need, because I really feel like everyone deserves to have marketing experts guiding them along the way. It's not something that should just be reserved for more established businesses with bigger budgets or, the big enterprise level companies that have massive teams working for them.
That's so huge and so cool that you're doing that. And I can't help but wonder, do you feel like your background with Aisle Planner, kind of in those very early formative years, is going to help position you as you're starting your own tech startup?
Totally. I mean, being a part of a tech startup is like, you kind of have to be a masochist in a certain way, because it is the most crazy adventure or project someone could ever take on. So I learned a lot there, especially being there from such like the early days. And what I really no, I have not perfected anything, but one of the things I have really perfected for myself is the ability to be extremely scrappy. So you give me nothing and I will turn it into something. And that's one of the superpowers that I brought into my client work, where, a lot of the wedding planners, photographers, venue owners that I was working with, they didn't have huge marketing budgets. And I could look at, our conversation and say, well, despite the fact that you don't have $1 bazillion in your bank account, we can still do stuff. So let's go do it. And so the scrappiness is something that I will always take away from that experience. But just also on the business side of things, you learn literally what are the pieces that need to be in place in order to get a machine like this up and running. And then from a business perspective, also what do I have to do in marketing? What do I have to do in finance and legal and human resources? And it just is this really aggressive MBA program that most people would never sign up for themselves, but we all get thrown into it.
So I love that you're describing this, because I think you got paid, I'm assuming, during your time there.
I did.
Right?
Not very much. It was still a startup budget, but I wasn't working for free.
Yeah, but you got paid. And I think the cool thing is some people go to an MBA program and pay, right? But you kind of got thrown into a very real life scenario. And I feel like it's so neat now that you are launching your own thing. You kind of got to, this is not your first time doing this. This is maybe, I mean, there are certainly first parts of what you're doing that are going to be first time for you because you maybe didn't sit in all the seats. But I mean, you kind of know some of the process, you know, the disorganization, the change, the, you know, all of that. Talk to me about change though, because our business has experienced a lot of growth, a lot of rapid growth. And I've personally received maybe criticism, complaints, feedback, call it, that the change, like, oh, everything's changing all the time. Oh, you know, everything is like, can we just not change something? When you think about change, especially with your work with Aisle Planner, and I'm smiling because I feel like I might know what your answer is going to be, but we'll see. You know, with Aisle Planner, with TAYLRD Designs, with Enji now, what's your attitude towards change? Like, how do you handle change and things maybe constantly changing or not changing? Like, give me a little bit of your feelings and thought around change.
Yeah, I think that most people don't like change, myself included. I get to a point in time where I consider things to be in the red zone, and I'm like, this is where you don't mess with my plan, right? Like, do not change anything about what's being requested of me, the timeline. And so I am a human. I don't like change in certain instances because I feel like it's the wrong time for change, or I'm just like too far down the road. But when it comes to change overall, as earthlings on this planet, it's just a part of the game, right? And humans are so innovative and inquisitive that we are constantly going to be innovating. And even though people can be resistant to change outside of themselves, we are all changing our own little worlds, right? Constantly. Every time we go to a new event and we meet new people, like, we've changed our social circle, then we've potentially changed, the people who can refer us business or who are going to help us make decisions. Or when you think about how your business operates, we sign up for a new CRM or a new system, or we go and we invest in education to learn how to do something more efficiently. And it's like, that's all change, but it's change we feel like we have control over. And so there's this like push and pull of the change that we get angry about because we weren't invited to the decision-making table. And then there's the change that we are implementing ourselves. So I think that we all have to take, deep breaths about the change that happens externally to us. But there's a lot of change happening in the industry and in the marketing space and in technology that if you're open to it, and everybody should be open to it, but if you have a problem and you're trying to get over a problem, there's probably something outside of you that has changed that is going to be the solution to that. And so, it's like I said, it's this very emotional thing, but we all need to kind of like get on the crazy train together.
That's really insightful, Tayler. I was chuckling earlier because I was thinking you were going to share kind of in the direction of like what it's like being inside of a tech startup, which I know can be pretty insane because things are just all over the place. But how you position that just now, the dichotomy between the personal changes that we're okay making because we chose them, and then the choices and the changes that are happening that are outside of our control that feel a little crazier. Like, that was beautiful because that's so true. That's so true. And for anyone listening to this, you probably intentionally made a change in your diet or in your relationships or something like that, and you feel good about that because you've thought through it a lot, and and then you make that change. Versus, like you said, if you're not invited to the table, it feels like you're out of control, and that's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, my background is in psychology, so that's probably why I took it there. But I mean, when it comes to change inside of a tech startup, even within Enji, I have this vision, and we've executed the vision to the, MVP, which is the minimum viable product, which we're really, really excited to put out into the universe. But then we have this roadmap of future products and features that we want to build out. And the interesting thing is artificial intelligence and an AI copywriting tool has been on my roadmap for about 2 years. We've been working on this for 2.5 years. So it's always been, we're going to do this, right? And up until a few months ago, it was a part of the roadmap that was probably 6 to 12 months post-launch clearly an extreme amount of change has happened so quickly in the AI space over the last 3 months that I feel like we have no choice. We have to move that up, like to the top of the list. And so it's change on the tech side and how we're making sure that we're building something that is new and exciting, but also keeping up with the, expectations and standards that externally technology sets for us. It means that we're never really on solid ground. We're always just like doing this, and it's like, well, okay, this is where we're going to go today. This is where we thought we were going to go, but scrap that. Everyone go turn left.
I'm thankful that you brought up AI. I was going to actually ask you, because you mentioned copywriting earlier. And so we're going to pivot here in just a second and really kind of get into some marketing strategy stuff. And I'd love to give that to the audience as a gift for today's, the time on today's podcast. But AI, how do you feel like it is currently impacting marketing, and how should people be using it right now?
So I'm going to mention crazy trains all the time. Like it's a crazy train right now. I think that people should be exploring it, and it is really impacting how marketing is happening. And the copywriting piece of it is the one that most humans now have heard about or have started testing and interacting with. Copy has always been one of the hardest things for someone who is running a business and also responsible for their marketing tasks, because pretty sure we all, myself included, hated English as a child. Like, I drug my feet. I hated writing, but you go to grad school and it basically gets beaten into you that you're going to come out the other side as a great writer. And so, but that's not most people. Most people stare at, even just a blank spot for an Instagram caption, and they freeze, because there's so much writing on everything that we do on behalf of our businesses, right? Because it feels that way. And so AI copywriting tools are a great way to rip off the Band-Aid and start allowing yourself to realize that marketing is about taking all these baby steps, and I just need to get this done. And if I'm hesitating on what I should be saying, just all you need to do is like jot down some, initial thoughts, and then the robot's going to give you a draft and you can perfect it from there. But so I think that for a lot of people, it's really going to help expedite the content creation, like all of the content creation that needs to happen on the marketing side of things. But when I look at how Enji is going to incorporate artificial intelligence into our tools, eventually what we want to be doing is, using AI copy tools to help business owners create some of these like really foundational pieces that are around their brand voice and their marketing messaging and, SEO keywords and writing pillar blog content. But also what we really think there's a lot of power in is understanding across industries, which the wedding industry is like, I love it, but in terms of business overall, it's kind of the redheaded stepchild, which is silly because it's so massive, right? And there are so many businesses in this space, but it gets overlooked constantly. And so when you want to have any sort of benchmark data about what's working in the wedding industry for businesses, it's almost impossible to find, right? Because even the Knott's big Real Weddings report that they put out every year is very focused on the consumer side of things and not coming from the business owner. So what we want to do is we want to start being the place that people turn to understand industry level trends of what's happening in the marketing space and what's working for people and what's not, and potentially drilling that down into what's working in your market, right? Like your corner of the country with venue owners in Philadelphia, right? As opposed to only taking a broad strokes look at stuff.
I love that you said redheaded stepchild of like all of the industries, because I have felt that. It took me a couple of years in this industry to kind of get that feeling. And then I was like, wait, why is this? This is the first time I'll say this publicly, but on a podcast, and we'll start talking about this more, but we're starting a venue association for venue owners, because I'm so confused why we don't have representation, why there's no lobbying, why there's no group purchasing opportunities, why there's no networking community around venues, like venues specifically, right? Not the whole entire industry. And so it's something that we've started to work on, but really drilling in more to what you're talking about. Why do you think that is? Like, you identified it, right? You said that it is, and anyone who's in this industry for a long time, you're totally right. Why do you think that is?
The wedding industry has always been looked at as a cottage industry. I mean, even from people who are in it. Like, I've been told by some people in the wedding industry, like, oh, like when I started my consulting business, oh, that's great. Like, you've got this little like cottage industry business. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's like 400,000 businesses in this industry, which is massive. And you look at a company like the Knot or Zola, they're massive companies that were like once publicly traded. So there's money here. But I think part of it is because there's almost no barrier to entry, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of turnover in the businesses in this industry across vendor types. And so I think that contributes to it. But also, when people think of weddings, there's just a public disassociation with the business of being in the wedding industry, right? They just think it's parties. And mm-hmm. so I think fundamentally that's why just like the world kind of overlooks this massive industry that creates so many jobs, contributes to the GDP, just like all of this nerdy stuff. Sorry, guys, I totally just nerded out on you. But like,
let's get nerdy. No, it's so true.
Let's get nerdy. Yeah. People overlook the contribution that collectively all of the small businesses in the wedding industry, contribute to this country.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely be excited to chat with you further just about your viewpoint on this. I do want to pivot though. I'm going to talk about this. I could talk about this with you the whole entire time, but I want to pivot because I want to talk about marketing with you, and we're going to end up probably having to have you come back on, especially when Enji launches, and talking about everything that it does, because I'm excited for what you're doing. But let's pivot a little bit to marketing. There's something that you said, kind of specific marketing stuff. There's something you said very early on. You said clients who work with Enji are going to realize that it's just kind of like working with you in a nutshell and in software form. And you mentioned when to look at metrics. And so I'm curious, especially because we are in the wedding and events industry, how frequently should people be looking at metrics? Maybe what are some of those metrics? So let's take some of this data stuff and talk about it piece by piece, because I'd first like to know from your perspective, what are the points of data that people need to be gathering? And then how frequently should they be looking at those points of data? Could you break some of that down for us?
Yeah. So the data that any business owner wants to look at should be directly tied to their goals and objectives, right? So there are hundreds of data points that someone could be looking at, but not everyone needs to be looking at all of them. Typically, I think the sweet spot is there are, somewhere between 10, maybe 30 data points that are going to give you a holistic look at the health of your business and the results that you're getting from marketing and sales efforts and all that kind of stuff. So within the Enji tool, I've gone through and broken down by category here: advertising metrics, email marketing, social, website, sales. There might be another thing in there, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And there's tons of options underneath each one of these categories, so that, again, no one really understands like what to do. Most marketing platforms out there operate off of the premise that a business owner fundamentally understands what they should be doing. And I say this with all the love, but most people don't, right? Like, they don't. So there's this really robust list that people can choose from depending on what their overall business goals are. But the ones that are important, you want to be making sure that you're validating that what you're doing on the marketing side of things is actually turning into dollars in your pocket. And so let's take advertising as an example. And, not necessarily just advertising with a listing on, a marketplace, but, this could be pay-per-click ads that you are doing on a search engine like Google, or social media ads that you're setting up on Facebook to hit Facebook and Instagram, or even Pinterest, right? Because Pinterest advertising is a thing as well. But, you want to make sure that people are seeing your ad. So typically that would be your ad impressions. You want to understand that people are clicking into your ad. So that would be or your cost per click is a metric that you can be tracking around that. But then you also want to be making sure that they're hitting the landing page that's on the other side of the ad. And so there's some website metrics in there. And then potentially, depending on what the goal of your ad was, let's say it was to build your email list, you want to then see that you're getting a steady number of new email list subscribers every month. And so it's understanding, the through line from the public entry point to your marketing and sales funnel, and then what you consider a conversion to be. And that conversion can be an email list sign up. It can be someone submitting an inquiry form, booking a tour, or actually signing a contract, right? It can be any one of those things, or something else if you want to throw something else into the mix. But so you have to figure out what those things are. And then once you've got your mix of KPIs, honestly, if you look at your numbers once a month, that's great, right? Get a once a month look back at the trailing 30 days, type those numbers into, the KPI tool in Enji. I mean, technically you could do it on an Excel spreadsheet, but it's less fun. It's less fun that way.
Excel until Enji's fully launched, right? And then, yep, there you go. Cool.
And then you can transfer it over.
Perfect.
But then you get into that habit of doing it, every month. And so my personal habit is I go and I fill out my KPI sheets. I'm currently sitting in an Excel spreadsheet because Enji's not ready yet. I do it on the first day of a new month, and I look at the trailing month. And so it's like clockwork. On the first day of a new month, I'm going to spend 30 minutes and I'm going to gather all of my, my marketing KPIs and plug them into that sheet so that I know. And then over the course of a year, I can see what's changing month over month. But then also year over year, then you can start to make predictions, right? You can start to see these, these ebbs and flows that are natural in the wedding industry. And then that helps you set expectations on the business side. Do I expect this month or quarter to go gangbusters, or is this kind of a slower period of time? Just simple expectations like that, you can set with confidence if you have numbers that back up that kind of gut feeling about things.
That makes so much sense. You were describing it, and I was almost thinking about a bus or maybe a train route. And at each one of these kind of stops, if you will, is it true you want to see activity? You want to see impressions? You want to see, because like at the bus stop, right? If it's something, someone's going along and then they hit a landing page or they hit a social media post or whatever it is, you want to see activity. If you don't see activity, let's say, for example, someone does hit a landing page after, seeing an ad, and then you see a high bounce rate, meaning you see a bunch of people that are landing on the page and then jumping off and not going to the next step. So people are getting off the bus, they're not staying on the bus to go to the next bus stop. How do you get into that and unpack that? I mean, that's easy to kind of look at and go, oh, wow, we have a high bounce rate, but then what next?
Yeah. And so this is where marketing becomes an art form, right? As much as we all want marketing to be a science where someone says do this and follow this sequence and you will be a gazillionaire on the other side, it's not. Makes me cry in my sleep. It's not just a simple equation. I don't actually cry over it, but what you want to be doing is looking at, okay, well, what are the variables that could be influencing that bounce rate? Sometimes it's as fundamental as what you're offering them is the wrong offer, right? Like you're putting something in front of people that they just don't want. That's kind of a kick in the gut, because that doesn't feel good when you land on, okay, well, this is why I think this is broken, but it's a possibility that your offer is wrong. Another thing to look at is the copy and layout of your landing page. Are you not making the offer or the benefit clear right out the gate? And it's like you've buried the lead way too much. And so people are just way too impatient and they're like, I don't get it in the 0.5 seconds, so I'm out. So that's another thing that people can be kind of exploring in this scenario. And then lastly, maybe it's the process to actually get to that next conversion is buried or complicated, or it's like too high effort. So, like there are times where you remember when it was a few years ago when like everyone and their mother was doing these super long form sales, like landing pages that you just like literally scrolled forever.
Yep.
I was like, can someone please just like show me where the price is? And like, can you please put that button way like higher up on the page? Because the fact that I have to spend 90 seconds scrolling is quite ridiculous. So, these are some of kind of the psychological and behavioral things that people should be looking at. And that's where marketing is an art, is because it's very much rooted in psychology and human behavior, because that's what you're trying to do with marketing is you're trying to get someone to take your desired action, but you're trying to convince them to do that. So when your KPIs and your marketing metrics are showing you that something's not quite right, it's not about just scrapping it. It's about giving yourself some time to experiment and make one change at a time. So you have, a controlled variable, like we all learned in high school science, so that we can know, like, this is the one thing I changed. So did it or did it not have an impact? And then over time, you can keep making these controlled changes until you eventually get to the point where you've got this really dialed in funnel or ad or, just marketing campaign in general.
I'm curious, from marketing campaigns and maybe drilling in a little bit more specifically to social media, because this is just where a lot of our industry is. Are you a fan of using posting tools like Planoly or Tailwind or any of the different ones that are out there that kind of will help actively post for you? Or do you feel like there's an argument for just posting organically within the app?
So it's a combination of the two. I think in order to make marketing a habit that you can actually stick to, using a scheduling tool is like a critical piece of that. And I use a scheduling tool for all of my businesses because I have like 3 business accounts plus I'm a part of a business organization here in San Diego, and I also do their social media. So like I would not survive as a human if I was needing to post organically on 4 different accounts all the time. And so my habit with this is Fridays are my social media scheduling day, and I spend about an hour per account, and I schedule out what I can and what makes sense to for the upcoming week. And there are things that it doesn't make sense to schedule, or you can't schedule it, like stories. That's organic posting all the 100% of the time. Like just have fun with it, share what feels right in the moment or the opportunity that sits in front of you. Reels is kind of, I think, a combination of the two, because depending on your style with Reels, it can be very produced and professional with like professional video, which I don't have that. I don't have access to that. So any of you that do, slow claps to that. But if you're on that end of the spectrum, you probably can do some scheduling of Reels. But if you're on the other end and you're doing things that are more casual, meaning like you're just taking a quick scan of a scene and kind of hitting it from there, then you might want to just do it in the moment. So, it's kind of, it's a mix of the two. That's how I personally survive it, is getting some things scheduled ahead of time, and sometimes just allowing myself to be active and more impromptu.
Got it. Let's dive in a little bit more and maybe even wrap up today with this, but just talking about how do people intentionally make marketing a habit? Like, what is that? Because you said that a couple of times, and I really, really like that. That rings true in my own experience. But what does that look like practically for people? How can people do that?
Yeah, the first thing, everyone's going to be like rolling their eyes at me, but you have to commit to it, right? I mean, building a habit doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to really work it into your routine. But, someone dedicated their time, probably your mom, because we all love our moms, or, some of us have complicated relationships with our moms, but some parental figure probably taught you that brushing your teeth every day was an important habit, right? And they held your hand through it for probably years to get you to the point where, yeah, you just brush your teeth on your own. And I don't think that building the marketing habit takes years, but I do think, honestly, it probably takes about a quarter or 3 months to finally settle into things, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to not tick your marketing tasks off of the calendar every week or every day. And that's fine. But it's in this greater effort to be doing something on a regular basis. And so to me, the key tool that you need to have is, it's a calendar. It's very simple, right? But most business owners and wedding professionals don't write their marketing tasks down. It's very interesting. Like business tasks, admin tasks, pay your taxes, those are all documented somewhere because they feel like they could end your business if you don't do it. But guess what? If you don't do your marketing, it can end your business, right? Like that is just a fact. Marketing is how you get customers in the door. And so I really want people to start using a calendar and putting their marketing tasks on it and checking them off. Even if they're doing one thing every other day. I don't care what the pace is, because a realistic pace is key to, recognizing that, hey, I can do this. And so that's why a marketing task calendar is one of the central tools that we've built into Enji's, because there are things you need to be aware of and keep top of mind. And if you don't document them, they're going to fall to the wayside for no one's fault in particular, but most, people wedding venue owners especially, right? It's like they have a physical space that they need to manage. They have teams of people. There's like things happening all over the place. And there are so many facets to successfully running a venue that I forgot, right? I forgot because something got lit on fire, maybe literally or maybe figuratively, but there was a fire at my venue and I needed to take care of it. And so just making sure that you're keeping them in front of you is really the key. It's a simple concept. It's a simple execution, but committing is really the key.
Yeah, that so resonates, because this time last year I was just getting off of doing this like fitness thing called 75 Hard, and it's
hard.
Yeah, it is hard, and it's 75 days. And the interesting thing to me was the consistency that's a part of that program. Nothing really felt really impactful in one day. Like I can really truly say I never had a day where I felt like, wow, I just made so much progress. I never had that feeling in the moment. But after looking at 1 month, 2 months, then 3 months, it's like 3.5 months approximately. After looking at that time, there were such tremendous results. Talk to me about that. Like, in your experience, maybe, is it a possibility to feel discouraged because 2 weeks in, you're like, I haven't really tracked that many numbers, and I don't know. I heard that podcast from Tayler, and she said I should be doing this stuff, but like, where am I? Like, is that normal to feel that? Should people just push through it, or is that a sign that something needs to change?
It is totally normal to feel frustrated and defeated and about marketing and question whether or not it's worth your time. that's totally normal. I think there are very few people who feel like they've got it dialed and they're nailing it, right? Like marketing is easy. Marketing is not easy. Marketing is hard. And it's okay for that to be the premise that you operate off of, right? Like this is hard. But the rewards of it only come after you've, committed to it, like your 75 hard challenge, where you're making these incremental changes, taking baby steps, turning just a little bit every time. And over the course of a certain period, you're like, oh, well, cool. Like I have all of a sudden like a steady stream of inquiries where before, they were just trickling in. And, the kind of the other piece of this is that I think people have unrealistic expectations of what a marketing timeline really is. Like from start to finish, from you starting something to the time it's impacted your business, it's kind of a long stretch. It's like no one's going to post one reel on Instagram and just have 10,000 followers and all of a sudden be going gangbusters. Like not realistic.
Yeah.
But that's the way a lot of people feel is, hey, I posted on social consistently for a few weeks, or I ran an ad campaign and it didn't work. So like, why should I keep going? It's okay that it didn't work. But again, if everyone treated their marketing like how a lot of people wake up in the morning and they feel super compelled to answer client inquiries or, booked clients that have emailed you with stuff. If everyone felt so compelled that if everyone acted the same way with their marketing, right? Like that if I don't do this every day, my business will fail, which is how people tend to treat their client experience and their client responses. Like it'd be a whole different game for folks. So realistic timelines, it's hard. It's okay to be frustrated at it, but it's commitment and habit building. And that's how, venue owners and small business owners overall can really get to the point where they're starting to like release some of the frustration and start to feel like, okay, I can totally do this.
I love that. That's so powerful. Tayler, thank you for spending some time with us here today. I mean, we jumped around so many different topics, and I'm so excited for you as you launch Enji, and you'll definitely have to keep us in the loop. I know we're kind of a couple week behind release timeline, so as soon as you let us know, ideally we'd put some links in, and we can direct folks over there. But if people want to stay up and connected with you prior to that launch, or even are interested in tailored designs or any of the other things that you're doing, any of the other hats you're wearing, like you said in the beginning, where should they be connected with you on?
Yeah, so the Enji Instagram is Enji, which is, I should spell it because it's not totally phonetical, ENJI_CO. I am there most days creating content, talking about all marketing things all the time. And our website is enji.co. And you can sign up for our email list if you want to learn more about what we're doing, have a little peek under the hood, so to speak, before we launch. But if you also want to talk marketing, copywriting, not gonna lie, there's some politics moving into my personal account at TAYLRD Designs. That's TAYLRD_designs. And that's where you'll also see me skiing. You'll see a lot of ski content in the winter and mountain bike content in the summer. So, it's kind of like the mishmash of my life over there.
I love that. You got to have that. You got to have that. That's who you are. That's so cool. Thank you so much for coming on today. This has been awesome. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I know the audience will get a lot of benefit from it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking shop, and the energy that I got from you, I can tell that you also like it. So I'm very excited to have connected. Like I said, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and nerd out with you.
Very cool. We'll have you back on, and we'll see everyone else in the next episode.